Okay, so now we come to another anthology movie titled Green Lantern Emerald Knights. Now, this was released. This is another cash-in title. Now, I don't mean to put any kind of negative connotation on it, but really, one of the primary reasons why this was released was to tie in, or not really tie in, but cash in on the 15 minutes of popularity that the Green Lantern was about to undergo due to the upcoming release of the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie. But does that make it bad? No. In fact, it's better than the Ryan Reynolds movie. I know, not saying much, but while I can't really say this is exactly one of their finest, it it had me entertained, and it does offer some neat insight into the Green Lantern series as a whole. Basically, the central plot, the overarching plot is that the sun the sun is becoming a gateway for some super being known as Krona. So the Green Lanterns are tasked to go there and stop it. Now, on the way, Green Lantern Hal Jordan is showing a new recruit um, named I'm looking at her name right now, Aresia. Well, this new recruit is basically asking around and trying to find her wings in terms of really becoming a Green Lantern. She's trying to get her feet wet because she doesn't really have a whole lot of confidence in her own abilities, because up until a few days ago she was just a student, and all of a sudden she was chosen by this great intergalactic power to be one of the guardians of the universe, essentially. So she's feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and Hal Jordan is basically mentoring her, and that basically provides the framing device for the entire movie. In that while the primary plot deals with stopping Krona and the impending battle with what essentially they describe as Armageddon, Hal Jordan is filling in this new recruit on a bunch of other Green Lantern characters that more often than not get pushed into the background in these stories. They don't really get a whole lot of screen time. So so the first one is called the First Lantern. So the first story deals with the First Lantern, and it basically deals with the origins of the Green Lantern Corps, how the Guardians harnessed, how the Guardians came up with the how they harnessed willpower, and who the first group of Green Lanterns were. So so the second one is called, or they don't really provide much in the way of titles. The second one deals with Kilowog's early days of training, and how he grew into the hard-boiled, tough guy that he is nowadays. The third one deals with Lyra, this this Asian-influenced alien who was previously a princess, but after going into the Green Lantern Corps, she has been kind of uh, she hasn't necessarily been on the best terms with her family. So that kind of deals with her tackling a lot of personal conflicts and fighting some of her family members on her home planet. The fourth one deals with the mysterious Green Lantern known as Mogo, and this guy named Balfunga the Unrelenting seeks to challenge Mogo. So he travels to the planet where Mogo is apparently located, and tries to find him. So that's the fourth one, and the fifth one deals with Avensur. Now, Avensur was originally was the was the original owner of Hal Jordan's ring before being killed. So that's the basic gist. There's five shorts, and they all pop up periodically in this overarching plot of galactic of galactic of galactic conflict. So, what do I like about this movie? Well, the voice acting, as always. Nathan Fillion does a really good job as Hal Jordan. I don't like him quite as much as Christopher Maloney, but even so, he still does a good job. He can be funny when he needs to be. He can be serious when he needs to be. He handles the sarcasm of the character pretty well, while at the same time he handles the earnestness of the character pretty well. Jason Isaacs is also pretty good as Sinestro. He's good for a lot of the same reasons as Victor Garber was, although unfortunately he doesn't really get as much time to develop the character as Victor Garber did in Green Lantern First Flight. Elizabeth Moss as the new recruit, she's pretty good. She really handles the innocent naivety of the character pretty well. She has that kind of deer in the headlights voice, but without it seeming like this almost damsel in distress. You can tell that she lacks confidence, but you can also tell that there's a real strength to her character. Hence, why the Green Lantern ring chose her. And the other guys, like Arnold Vosloo as Abin Sur, Henry Rollins as Kilowog, Kelly Hu as Lyra, all of them do great. And the fact that they did cast such talented actors in these roles really lends a whole lot of uniqueness and gravitas to these characters that perhaps you wouldn't have gotten if you had just cast if you had just. The whole movie is focused on giving depth and backstory to characters that you wouldn't normally focus on in a Green Lantern story. I mean, Kilowog. We learn the origin of Kilowog and his training regime. We learn why Lyra is so comparatively antisocial. We learn what a brave and noble soul Abin Sur was. We learn the origin of the Green Lantern Corps. So this movie does a lot of things right, and if you're a Green Lantern fan, I really think you will get a lot of enjoyment out of this movie. And even if you're just a casual comic book fan, I think you will find at least something in here worth liking. Now, casual movie fans or someone who is completely disinterested in comic books or the Green Lantern mythos in general, I don't think you're going to like this one, because you won't know who any of these characters are. I mean, none of the shorts are bad, but you won't really get the significance of the Green Lantern Corps as much as someone who already knows what it is. The movie does a pretty good job of explaining all of these concepts without becoming dull. But at the same time, it's not really as accessible as something like First Flight was to newcomers, or something like Wonder Woman was. So I have to recommend this only to fans of the material, or even casual fans of the genre. Because even if you don't know anything about Green Lantern, this movie does a pretty good job of filling you in, or at least it does in my opinion. So if you're a fan of the genre but you know nothing about the Green Lantern, I still think you'll get a lot out of this movie. But what doesn't work is the fact that the central conflict lacks a lot in the way of urgency. This is supposed to be this big, high-stakes battle against this nearly invincible galactic entity, and it's constantly pushed to the side to make room for these shorts. How I would have structured this movie is is I would have just had Hal Jordan showing the new recruit around the planet Oa. I would have just had her. I would have just had it be a standard day of training, or a standard day of mentoring. I wouldn't have thrown this big overarching conflict into it when you were just going to pull audiences away from that to pull them into another short. And again, the shorts are good, but they constantly distract from the subject of Krona. So like I said, I don't mind having an overarching conflict in an anthology movie, but you have to connect it in some way to the shorts. And I think structure, and I think setting this on the planet Oa in just a standard day of training would have made a lot more sense than something like what they did here, where they're trying to have this big suspenseful battle while simultaneously trying to balance all of these unrelated shorts. It would have made a lot more sense if this was just a standard day of training. Because what happens when you're constantly pulled away from this central conflict is that the audience kind of forgets about it, or forgets why they should be invested, or what investment they had is drained when they're watching the short. So that's one major flaw, and it actually causes some of the movie to drag, because whenever it cuts back to the conflict of Krona, then I kept asking, okay, why should I care? Just roll the next short. And I understand you have to have a framing device, but I just would have chosen something else. Also, a minor gripe is that the shorts, a lot of the time, don't really seem all that connected. And again, I think sticking the movie with a better framing device, a better central arc, would have really helped matters. Because Lyra doesn't really connect to Kilowog, or the First Lantern, or Abin Sur. So I don't know. Maybe trying to connect these narratively a bit more would have helped. But again, if you're a Green Lantern fan, I think you will love this movie. It provides some interesting insight into this world, into this mythos, into these characters. It informs you of this mythos without seeming like a lecture, without seeming pandering. So the voice acting is great. The acting is very good. The shorts are all entertaining. And it really gives you a sense of perspective and a sense of scale, of just how big this whole core is. It's just, it could have been, the narrative framing could have been better. It's honestly the weakest part of this movie, and it really should not have been. But yeah, that's about all I got for Green Lantern Emerald Knights. I don't really have a whole lot to say, since I'm not exactly a hardcore Green Lantern fan. But yeah, it was entertaining for what it was, and I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I got some interesting backstory presented to me with some of these genuinely interesting characters like Kilowog and Lyra and whatnot. So yeah, I hope this helps Green Lantern Emerald Knights. It's another fairly solid entry in the DC animated mythos.